First issue, item on the agenda was, at last, town board meeting, we had one item from the plan commission, that was not approved, it was approved by the plan commission, but not by the town board, because we had not seen the final plans for the S and G storage, in the location, of Township Highway ES and Miramar Road. We now have that, I don't know, it's got sent around, everybody see it?
I went to it.
You see it? Did you see it? Okay.
Yep.
Adding on these three buildings, and the little one here, and the question was, what do we do for? Yeah, landscape, the trees and whatever, and the smell in there. So.
Wasn't there a resident who came and was concerned about the line of sight?
One person mentioned that, but all of these trees are on private property. Matter of fact, at the vision triangle, we only threatened for the sign, because,
Okay,
the trees are behind the sign,
okay.
And at an angle.
and they will, so.
The weeds are more closer to the intersection.
I just hadn't seen them.
And I don't know if it says the town board was copying on a letter that was faxed to me yesterday.
It
From-
did not come in the mail today.
Okay, it's from John Tyson's attorney, Christopher Sherbatowski.
Should we finish this first?
That is.
On this.
It is.
Claiming that the pole sign located at Miramar and ES belongs to Mr. Tyson. And through adverse possession or through the purchase of the Lee Shore property, he can't take any actions that would adversely impact the pole sign or visibility of the pole sign. I'm not sure where this project is going to be located and if it would have any impact on that sign at all.
The trees, if it would be a visual, depending on what kind of trees or shrubs they put up, I would imagine maybe, but it goes at an angle.
If you're heading north on ES, perhaps.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the sign, which is in town road right away, okay? It's halfway between the paved road and the private property, and all of the trees and grading are all encouraged in that.
Right, and the way the trees are suggested on this, I don't think there would even be a visibility issue. Okay, I just didn't know, I don't know if you wanna read it and pass it along, but I thought I'd better bring it to your attention before there's a vote.
So the only issue listed,
Or do you wanna make a copy and give it to everyone?
I can make copies.
Yeah.
That would be easier
that's
for
being
me.
done a little bit.
Well, and I don't think that issue has anything to do with the planning commission.
But isn't this town board action?
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the sign. It's with
It
his,
could.
He's saying the possibility of blocking the vision.
If the town board's decision was based on the landscaping, and if the landscaping creates a visual problem, that might be something the board wants to consider. That's the only reason why I brought it up.
Agreed.
So yes, you see any copies, so that'd be great.
Right there, it's in right away.
Yeah,
This sign is a new place sign for,
That's already.
you know, like the time comes.
But you're
between
saying
trees
the
or something,
current
I mean,
lady
that's-
sign.
Well, based upon whatever you guys are looking at,
Doesn't it?
Joe showed me the trees kind of
Yeah.
angle. So if you're coming north on ES, there shouldn't be any obstruction anyway.
Alright.
that just came today, or?
Yeah.
It was faxed to me yesterday.
But there was some.
Yeah, yesterday everyone was on here.
Sure, yes.
Well, that explains why I couldn't get hold of him.
That's like a couple, few hundred feet.
And I also, was gonna scan this letter to, Christine's file, and I put it to the machine, it's still sitting in there, because there was no internet. So I photocopied it and then I'll save it to them. So, if you want to see it,
I don't know what you're talking about.
well, it's self-explanatory. As we're reading the other thing like that. Probably a moot point, because Christine doesn't work here anymore, but. Good.
Was that copies for everyone?
I got it here, unless Jim said we should. This is a letter to the personnel file. And actually, we would discuss that in closed session anyway.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this from Chris.
I loaded up the paper, so it's, copy machine is not out.
The correspondence is that?
It's, something that, under personnel matters, that we'll discuss in closed session if Jim agrees that it should go into the file. Well, you have to agree with it too, but I wrote it.
Do we have she's making copies of.
Yeah, that's the, issue with the
Concern.
existing sign, not really the project.
I'm not saying there's any validity to the argument that's being raised by
Right.
Attorney Trevor
But we
Donahue.
should.
I just wanted you to know about
I
it.
greatly appreciate you letting us all know.
Before rather than after.
Correct.
So while we're waiting, Tim, I had a resident reach out to me on the burn thing.
Yeah.
And one of their concerns was the hours, and I know you said that changed
Yep.
from 6 to 6. His other question was,
Michelle, is that in regard to the email we all received?
Corbin?
oh, did everyone get it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I just gave it to Jim.
Okay,
And Joe had forwarded it to
Okay.
me earlier today.
okay.
But yes, his
The
concerns
two
were
hundred and fifty feet.
already addressed in what the chief and I discussed.
Okay, I knew the hours were, but I wasn't sure about the 250 feet.
The fire chief suggested 50 feet, which I think might have been the old ordinance.
What did it get changed to? 250 to what?
To 50,
50. And then the hours are 6 to 6, then?
yes. That's what was recommended.
Yeah.
It's not official till you guys vote on it.
Yeah, I read that, it does seem a little far away.
And you guys are
Quite early and.
Authorizing those changes for me tonight, and then I'll have the draft at the July 12th meeting.
Because we wanted to get it done before summer is
Yes.
over
Yes, that's why I had them put it on
tonight.
here instead of waiting until July, and then it wouldn't happen until August. And
But it looks like Joe had that least.
that's what I thought.
Yes.
I don't get that question down to the beginning of the
Just wanted to make sure it doesn't,
interfere with visibility.
Yeah.
or
it's,
gets moved or taken out during construction. But it's-
Right, that's what I would want, but then it's not, it's actually in the, is it?
Well, that's a civil lawsuit between
It is.
Mr. Tyson and whoever these people are.
Yeah, and furthermore, there's probably, a sign permit had probably been like all the other ones, you know. But even at that, nothing's gonna change here, you know.
I just didn't know if the project itself was going to interfere with, like, the sign having to come down or something.
You know, it's a long way from soil disturbance and a long way away from the proposed trees.
Almost appears that SMG or Steve Eninger or Warren Hanson, or Warren Hanson, took it into consideration when they kind of, you know, went around that sign.
Well,
They're
that-
taking that into consideration, I don't know, that's the way it looks.
And visibility, people
Visibility.
turning off of that road for safety
Perspective, yeah.
reasons, I mean, it
Yeah,
makes
so
sense.
it's the line of sight.
Yeah, line of sight.
Absolutely, cause it's not a perfect intersection, that's why it's labeled dangerous intersection on both sides as well. It is not a friendly intersection.
No. Anybody else want to see this drawings? Good. And everybody understands, basically what John is saying is I don't want this project interfering with that sign, but that's really, it's not gonna happen, and it's also a separate issue. You know, I'm not quite sure the exact, you know, reason it's there. Since it's in town right away, it means it probably was a permit, and it's a long time been there. You know,
No idea.
long time. So, this project is not gonna interfere with that, so. And the main reason why, again, I think we voted 3-2, to say no, not until we've seen this. So in order to get that resolution to the county so they can act on this, we have to act as a board, and that's why it's on this agenda, before the next meeting, I'll wait, you know, another couple weeks, you know, whatever, so. You were the first to look at it, what do you think from based on what you've seen?
Yeah, I just thought they took the effort to do what we requested, and I was pleased. I mean, I guess, I don't know what else to say. They didn't, put nothing, I guess the email was the verbiage, but, looks pretty self-evident just by the site plan. So,
You can make a motion.
I
just read what it
therefore,
says.
motion, we approve Steve Ettinger's petition for a conditional use of SMG Storage LLC, parcel number PA 4521-00001, may construct 3 storage units.
A second.
All right, we have a motion, and a second, any further discussion, questions? If not, on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? 5-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda is authorize Attorney Mills to contact Kenosha and Walden County Sheriff's Departments regarding status of pending investigations. And the reason this one is on there is I believe we authorized Jim a month ago to check with the DAs, not the sheriffs,
Correct.
right? So this will be authorizing Jim to make contact with, the 2 entities that are apparently doing, investigations on, the
I-
police department.
To be clear, I also had authority to contact the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Yes. Okay.
And those have all come up pending.
No, I have not contacted the Department of Justice yet. And I was going to I'm waiting to contact the DA at the same time, contacting the Sheriff's Department because I know the DAs aren't the ones involved. So, I'm gonna hit them both at once, knowing I'm not gonna get any response from the DA, because the Sheriff's Department is, what we found out, is actually the one doing the investigation.
The FBI was.
Yeah, they confirmed they received my request, that's
Got your
about
email.
it.
Thank you.
Right,
Elaborate
which
too
I
much.
fully expected, and I might get the same response from these guys, but at least I know we're barking up the right tree this time, if you will.
All right, so we need a motion to that effect.
I make a motion that we authorize Attorney Mills to contact the Kenosha and the Walworth County Sheriff's Departments regarding the status of pending investigations.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, second. Discussion, questions, anything? Not, on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? None. Okay. Next item, number 5, authorize Attorney Nelson to revise bird ordinance to include the fire chief's recommendations, and you had discussions going on off and on here for the last week or so.
He and I met at my office, and we went over the old ordinance, we went over the new ordinance, tried to marry the two, if you will. He didn't really have a lot of changes, quite honestly. But I wrote all the changes that he suggested, and I'm just gonna include them all, because,
So that's what we'll get to work on, or to act on at the July meeting. We'll be ready by then.
I'll have it ready for,
So it'll be our
So
agenda.
you'll send us an email or whatever with those.
I can,
Enumerating the changes or
I
whatever.
can.
Well, can we talk about the
Well,
changes
sure.
now? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
So I think it said, it was originally the size of a burn pit could be 36 by 36, and now it's 48 by 48.
No. Can I see that again?
Yes, that's right.
Size, distance, one of them, and time of day.
Here are the changes.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Only 50 years ago.
Section 8.25.0675 says a permit will be issued by the fire chief and his or her designee.
And it previously included the police, it said the
It
police
says
chief,
police.
right?
Yep, it's
Yes.
ordinance enforcement.
The next page. The presumption regarding it being too windy is changed from 10 miles an hour down to 9 miles an hour.
Which I'm not sure how many knows that,
Well,
but.
that's-
Bonfires, base I think is the same, 36 inches, flames not to exceed 48 inches, so it went up a foot, it went from 3 feet to 4 feet.
Oh,
in height.
but the,
But the base
The
didn't
base
change
is-
before.
Right, and then it says, all bonfires, including the use of but not limited to fire pits or freestanding fire containers, shall be no less than 50 feet, increased from 25 feet. So 50 is going to be
50 feet from any building.
across the board, Yes.
Anything combustible?
from anything combustible or structure.
That's my one question, I know we've discussed, but I mean, if you go down, I know there's places on the lake, they don't have 50 feet, so
Right.
they won't have a bonfire, I think 25 would work, but. I mean, I'm just saying, there's lots down there that are tighter than tight, so I don't know.
The newer ordinance said 25.
We need to move on.
The one that's in
The
place
police
right now says
department.
25. The fire chief wants to go up to 50.
So it's increasing the distance. of-
Yeah.
The
Yes.
fire chief is making the request to go from 25 to 50.
Yes, he is.
And of course, he's the fire guy.
He's the expert.
Okay, we should have used it the first time.
Well, again, when we passed that last year, we said we wanted to run a full year, well, we didn't get a year out of it, you know, so.
I have 50 feet at my house, but I'm just saying, there are places that don't have 50
That's a
feet, so they
stupid
will
rule.
have fire. I mean,
So are we gonna be,
it's up, I'm
Right,
just
because-
making the
We
suggestion.
mean their side yard, their front yard, and their backyard are all less than
If they're in the lake.
50?
From anything combustible, yeah, absolutely.
You gotta make it 25.
Or structure, it says.
Or structure, yeah, there's a lot of things that are combustible, I'm
Yeah, a
just
tree,
making a
right?
point.
I don't think that's what's,
I'm
there's
just
not a
saying,
definition section, but tree is not considered that.
was there any option in there for a, what do you wanna call that, a permanent, safe burning pit? Or not burning pit,
Some people have those regular fireplaces.
Right.
Yeah, I got one of those on my patio, and it's got,
I mean, I can certainly ask the fire chief before,
I did hear that
Yeah,
too.
raft
What
that
Chad
one.
just said, I heard that one immediately after it was passed last year.
Yeah.
And everything that I've got as far as phone calls, and none of them were emails except the one I forwarded to you, basically had that concern. Most of them were run from the nearest neighbor's structure, and that's.
so what distance are you thinking?
I'm just saying if it has to be from a structure, on any structure, I do know there's properties down there that you wouldn't get 50 feet out of it. I mean, there's,
And
everything's so
Potter's
tight.
Lake, there's some
Yeah.
lots that only have 50 feet of frontage.
And they're really, you know, I mean, they're just, they're tight, narrow lots. Like I say, I
But-
like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a matter of enforcement. Is anyone really
Right.
gonna see
Right.
if someone's flames are higher than 4 feet?
Well, it all depends who's driving by, cause now every single
Yeah.
car can come on.
Well, if the flames are over a
Drones.
roof line, if flames are over a roof line, then you know there'll be a problem.
Sure. How hard it's gonna be enforced, nobody will know until that time comes.
Right.
And
So now it's a
we
guess.
do education before we do anything.
That would be the fire chief's job.
I'm not saying yours.
Here's the other question that leads into that. You mentioned that, you know, approved by the fire chief.
Right?
Fire chief cannot do ordinance enforcement. Police have to.
But no,
He's
the
issuing a
permit
permit.
would be issued,
Permit.
right? He doesn't, he said, I'm not getting in the enforcement game.
That's permit issued by.
So I will, oh, this is Barb's, but I'll write on
You
here.
could write on.
So the fire department issues a permit.
I'm not
Right.
sure.
Your fire chief.
If you need one.
Yeah,
Barb says you can have her copy.
there's exceptions in there where you don't.
Need one at all,
you know,
right?
I'll just add it to my hard.
I just made
copy.
sure that I had copies for Chief.
I'm not trying to go against the fire chief, I'm just making
No,
Point of view.
and
a
your
point of,
point is
some
very
people won't
valid.
have a fire if that's the distance, and, you know, I don't know.
You're very valid.
I suppose there could be some old tiny cottages,
Definitely.
that you see on every other lake in
Yes,
Wisconsin
exactly.
that are super close and,
Mm-hmm. Not much of the front or the side or backyard, you know,
Okay.
pretty tight lots.
okay, so that was the change on that page. Except for, bonfires shall be conducted at a location at least 250 feet from the nearest building that's not on the same property. That's down to 50 feet.
Okay.
That was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Hours, instead of noon to 6, are 6 AM to 6 PM.
I heard lots on that. Well,
Does that mean like any burning, or is this just like no more s'mores at 8 at night, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
if you get a permit to burn earlier, if you would ever try to burn earlier than 6 AM, I don't
Sure.
know.
It's probably legal.
Earlier is just
After
nice for
you
yard
burn.
work
Right.
type of situations, really.
And that's
And then
what the
any-
people that talked to me were concerned about. Especially on the lake, they felt that the wind picked up after 10
That's
o'clock.
around hour.
Yeah, definitely.
But we are saying that there's no burning.
No burning after
6
8 unless you
PM?
get a permit from the chief, or after 6.
6
Or if you meet an exemption. And bonfires are exempted as long as you don't have a flame that's higher than 4 feet and it's not
That's what
higher
I-
than,
That's perfect, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
burn barrels
Ridiculous.
at least 50 feet away from the nearest building that's not on the same property. Before it said 250. I'll have to check about barbecue, gas and charcoal grills. No burning shall be undertaken within 50 feet of any combustible material, combustible wall or partition, exterior window opening,
It's on the patio by the back.
exit access or exit unless authorized by the fire chief. He might have increased that to 50.
That
Yeah,
you
one
have
thing,
to
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
On
also
your
not-
patio, yeah.
I'll
It's usually the
check with that one too.
And
I don't think a grill should.
I think Vince
I could see
talked
deep
to
frying
me
a
about.
turkey. Yeah, we all seen those
any
videos.
burning
Yeah.
You
on,
know,
What could go wrong?
like
Right.
an elevated
but I don't,
porch.
I'd put mine out in the middle of my yard to grill.
Driveway.
Oh, and this right of entry and inspection. It makes reference to special inspection warrants and the 2 Wisconsin statutes that authorize that. He wanted to know if that could be changed to the building inspector or the, police department, because he didn't want anything to do with it. So I looked at the statutes, they don't authorize those 2 people to do inspection warrants. So that whole section is being eliminated.
Now, what are the inspection warrants for, Jim? I guess.
Basically, to get onto someone's property, you have to have an inspection, someone that's authorized in statutes, by the statutes, to go in onto someone's property. That person can apply for basically a special warrant to go onto your property to do inspections. He's like, this isn't really the type of game he wants to get involved with. So he said, if you can't assign this to someone else, his preference is just to get rid of it. So I'm just eliminating it.
I'm misunderstanding something. I mean, let's just say a fire is, taking place, and it appears to, let's say, well, for instance, the thing that happened on Ash Street, I suppose, where the fire looked like it was larger than safety warranted, or I mean, whatever the reason was. But, the police officer really is not allowed at this time
No,
to cross.
they are. This
to give us a
means,
citation or whatever.
no, if you see a violation of the ordinance, the cops can enforce. This special inspection warrant access hardly ever comes into play. I can remember coming into play once, and I think that was with the Kasich property on Beach Road, where a special inspection warrant had to be issued. In the context of bonfires, I don't know how it would ever come into play. So I have no problems just eliminating it. And he said if I can't find someone else, he'd prefer it just be eliminated, so I eliminated it in the draft that I'll present. And those were the changes. So 250 to 50, 10 to 9, and then change hours was pretty much it. But I'll check on the 50 feet for people that don't have that much space that they can have a bonfire. And I'll also ask about the grill and the 25-foot.
Well, the grill also I thought had to be, I know that Vince told me that the grill couldn't be on like a deck.
Everyone's grill's on a deck,
Patio,
right?
We have a
but
patio
concrete
concrete.
patio is different than, yeah.
But it's.
I'll ask about
usually
that,
next to
maybe
the
we
house,
can
or
change
not
Right, the
50
siding
50
and-
feet away.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I mean, wintertime, that would be a bummer. We'd be in my snow gear in the middle of the yard grilling.
All right, you need a, motion on number 5.
Move, I authorize Attorney Mills to revise the burn ordinance to include the fire chief's recommendations and additional corrections based on our discussion here this evening.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, second. Discussion?
I guess I was just curious about that 25 to 50 foot distance thing. That's still.
Still
I'm asking
Yeah,
no
yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
Okay,
Yeah, before
That's
the,
it. That seems to be. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Okay, number 6.
I motion to move to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub F and sub G for the purpose of preliminary consideration of employee personnel matters.
All right, the letters are correct, we got rid of one of them.
I got rid of one.
Okay, okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, second. Discussion? On the motion, to go to closed session. All in favor say aye, roll call vote. Clarkowski, aye.
Jerks, aye.
Wales, aye.
Castle, aye.
And Ray is aye.
All right. We are now in closed session.
We gotta leave?
Yeah.
That's what that
Yeah, you
means.
gotta turn the machine on.
Good timing, Steve.
Can't leave it in here.